it's a very, very robust literature at the moment with the effects of modern lighting, particularly at night. It's quite difficult to avoid in the modern world, and all of our modern light bulbs are extremely highly blue lit. Is there anything we can do to sort of offset the effects of that blue at night? I've got, red globes and red glasses. Are those things that people can do to protect themselves?
Sure. It's really a matter of education, getting to understand a little better the issue. And actually, it's a relatively new issue. It's never been important until the last few years, I would say less than 5 years, because of a very simple fact, because we are now in the midst of a technology change in our lighting. We're just moving from incandescent lights, which have been used for over a century since Edison's time, and we are shifting now to LED lights. And the LED lights bring to the fore these questions, because for the first time, they can generate spectrums of light emission that are very different from the natural spectrum of light. It's a happy coincidence that the incandescent light that we've been using for the past century are thermal sources. It's a hot filament glowing, and it's a very similar physical phenomenon to sunlight. The sun is also a hot globe of gas at the corona at the surface, about 5,000 K. And it generates light with this broad continuous spectrum. And if you look at the incandescent light, it's exactly the same black body wide spectrum. It's just shifted a bit because the temperature is more towards 3,000 K than 5,000 as the sun, but basically its nature is similar. So we've been using this artificial light that has a very similar spectrum to natural light. And therefore, there's been no problems because we've just been nicely fitting into the natural sensitivity of our organisms. And so we've kind of gotten used to the idea that artificial light is fine. It's not an issue. And suddenly, now that LEDs are come in the game, we kind of take them for granted and don't really look more closely. And of course, it's leading to a number of problems which are now coming to the forefront of the mainstream culture. So everybody now has heard of the issues in blue light, circadian rhythm. And so fortunately, things are starting to change because, as you mentioned, LED light bulbs often have an excess of blue. But there is no necessity for this. Technologically, you can very well make LED light bulbs which don't have this excess of blue. It's just a matter of where you put the emphasis. Originally, when this started, people put the emphasis on energy saving. It was the whole reason for being for these LED light bulbs, because they consume a lot less energy. And economics, they have to be cheap. So engineers have been looking for the maximally energetically effective spectrums. And it so happens that those are the ones that have a lot of blue. And the focus has been there in the beginning. And now that we are becoming aware of the risks associated with that, the culture is changing, and it's gradually seeping down to manufacturers. And now you can very well choose the temperature of the light bulbs that you buy in the hardware stores. And one very basic thing to do is to use only lower color temperature bulbs in the home, like below 3,000 K, like 2,700 K, something like that. What's called soft light or warm white and so on. And if you do that, already you will cut a lot of the problems, because we use of course, these light bulbs are used mostly at night. And this is when an excess of blue will start to disrupt your circadian rhythm. It also goes the other way. Some people are trying to use more bluish white, cool white with higher temperature in the daytime, so that it's more aligned to daylight, and it helps to keep you awake, stimulate you, and so on. So this is an interesting aspect. It's what's called human-centric lighting, where you can vary the color temperature of your lighting depending on the time of day. And hopefully this will eventually become standard. It will become the normal thing to do. But in the meantime, the very simple basic thing is to only use lower color temperature light bulbs in your home. There's another whole other aspect that is lesser known that's related to light noise. That's completely independent from the spectrum of the light bulb. And it's the fact that LED technology often generates a high amount of light noise. Light noise simply refers to the fact that the light that is emitted by the bulb is not perfectly stable. It can contain high frequency components that are not visible. Your eye cannot perceive any rhythm faster than about 50 or 60 hertz. That's the flicker fusion frequency. So engineers have been making light bulbs which might flash at high frequencies. And because you don't perceive it, they concluded that it's fine and it's cheaper to make. So we end up with light bulbs that often emit high light noise. And it's becoming more and more clear that this is not so innocuous. It actually has detrimental effects, even if you don't perceive it consciously. It can lead to migraines and eye tension in people who are especially sensitive. And even for the rest of us who may not be so sensitive, this kind of constant low-level stress in the light source kind of accumulates. It kind of adds to our other environmental stresses like radio waves and chemical pesticides. So if you add again the unhealthy light component, pulsating light, it all adds up to what we see in our societies in terms of chronic illness and all kinds of disorders which medicine has trouble pinning down because they don't have a single cause. They're just the accumulation of stressors over years. So all that to come back to the fact that, again, technologically, there's no necessity for these LED light bulbs to emit noise. You can perfectly make them with very low noise, very clean light. It's just a little more expensive. It might be a little less energy efficient, but it's well worth the small differences. With the spectrum aspect, with the blue color aspect, it's easy to see it. You can see whether the light is bluish or more yellow. But with the light noise, it's hard to perceive, and you need an instrument to measure it, or a simple way is to translate light noise into sound, because your ear will be sensitive to these high frequencies. And that's what I've done with a small instrument here, the Light B, that converts light into sound. So you immediately, very easily can check the light sources in your home and just discard noisy light bulbs. And if you go to the hardware store, you'll see that a number of them are clean. Maybe, from what I've seen lately, maybe half or a third to half of the light bulbs are fairly stable. So that's another aspect of unhealthy light.